My information on one platform has already been exposed 17 times. And then there are cases that normal citizens, I'm not talking about like politicians or government officials, that those attackers will wait for them after work and then punch them up. It is that worse in Hong Kong. A lot of people didn't know because it's not reported in the Western media.
Hello guys, thank you for taking your time to be interviewed with us.
Hello.
So could you please first take turns to introduce yourselves?
My name is Angelo Giuliano. I've been living in China for the last 25 years and the last 3 years mainly in Hong Kong. So I'm a financial consultant and I'm following closely everything that is related to China, the whole geopolitics, this new Cold War that we are living, and trying to fight disinformation because there's a lot to challenge about the news we get from the Western medias.
Hello, I'm Barrie. You probably know who I am. Best China Info is the website, and what can I say? Right now, the BBC hate me.
Maybe you can elaborate more later on.
My name is Laura, and I've been living in Hong Kong for the last 24 years. I'm a former academic, and I have published extensively on color revolutions and hybrid war. It's my field of expertise at the moment.
I'm Nixie Lam. I'm a former district councilor in Hong Kong, so I'm still engaged in various media outlets and posting at the moment because I think it's pretty important these days to try to debunk some of the lies and fabricated news in Hong Kong. It's very difficult, just like what I hosted a show this morning, and people's been talking about like Xinjiang and things like that, and like couldn't hold it sometimes. You just have to go in and fight. Yeah.
Great. So today we're going to talk about the recent conflict between tech companies and Hong Kong government. So a letter by tech companies to Hong Kong government was misinterpreted by Wall Street Journal, saying that Facebook, Twitter, and Alphabet's Google have privately warned the Hong Kong government that they could stop offering their services in the city if authorities proceed with planned changes to data protection laws, which could make them liable for the malicious sharing of individuals' information online. However, this has been clarified and denied by those tech companies. So why do you think the Wall Street Journal twisted the report?
When I read the news, like, really? Are they going to leave? I actually texted my friend who's working in Facebook and said, are you guys going to leave at all? And raised that question because it sounds to me it just doesn't really make sense. I mean, if they are working in Hong Kong as a company, they know how much freedom they're actually enjoying is somewhere that the level of freedom, you just cannot experience that level of freedom anywhere around the world. So I just don't understand how they come up with this. And then later on, I mean, they pretty much they came out with the clarification within a few hours. But then I mean, I deliberately checked on Chinese news and on English news. A lot of the English news just didn't even mention. It just mentioned about the fabricated news relating to their leaving Hong Kong, but when they clarify, so nobody actually like referenced to that clarification at all. I mean that's pretty similar to what has been happening in Hong Kong, like say in 2019, all those riots doing things and those like so-called freedom fighters, they're doing a lot of the wrongful doing in Hong Kong and rioting and this and that, but then all those like fake news, they just quote, okay, this guy says whatever. But if it's a wrong news, then nobody come up and they say, oh, sorry, we are wrong or something like that. And even so, I remember a very good example is the CNN cases where the video was showcasing the protesters were throwing petrol bombs to police, but the video they portray in their channels is a reverse video. So international audiences were actually seeing police throwing petrol bombs to the protesters. And then, but they didn't really clarify after that. I mean, I think sometimes it just seems that after so many experience living in Hong Kong and over these years, they just deliberately trying to do that and portray fake images of what China it is these days, and how Hong Kong's been becoming like hell or something like that. It's just totally wrong.
I think it's about looking at facts. I think most of the people haven't read the letter. Actually, the letter from AIC, which is Asia Internet Coalition, is a very nice letter. The letter is commending the Hong Kong authorities to look into this problem of doxing, and is very much willing to cooperate with the Hong Kong authorities. So the problems that you see, Wall Street Journal is just doing a fake news here, and you have all the other Western medias that are taking over this news, just copy paste, just change a few words, but it's exactly the same. And this news is going worldwide. So it's just following the agenda, the US State Department agenda. So again, those Western medias are clearly showing they're not doing any more information. It's just propaganda and propagating fake news. The problem is that average viewers of Western medias, they don't have the time to look into facts. It takes us 5-10 minutes and just to find what is happening. This is part of this whole brainwashing. And again, the things that people might see one debunking, but it takes so much just to get all the debunkings. So it's very hard for us. And it's very disgusting. I think, and this is why there's a new term for the press is what we call prostitutes. It's a mix of press and prostitutes because they are actually prostitutes of a system, very evil system that is bringing us into war, potentially a cold war. At worst, a hot war between China and the US.
Yeah, that's very misleading and unfortunate.
It probably did so in order to create alarm among international companies that have offices in Hong Kong and in the business community. So I think the article intended to stir up a hysterical reaction by presenting this amendment, which is the amendment to the Personal Data Ordinance, as an attack on privacy and digital freedom, while the amendment actually will offer a better protection of users' privacy than the current ordinance does. And that dovetails with the recent declarations that we heard from the US government, who basically officially raising that alarm and inviting these companies to leave Hong Kong. I think that there was a strategy behind it.
All the big media organizations are involved. And it's the BBC, it's the ASPI, it's the Wall Street Journal, it's the New York Times when it suits them. And what happens is, if you can see behind, there's always several reasons. There is a strategy. One of the things that most people don't realize is that every time these kind of sound bites are delivered across the media, stocks go up, shares go down, these kind of things happen, and somebody is making a lot of money.
So coming back to the topic of doxing, for those who are not familiar with the word, it actually refers to the practice of putting people's personal information online so that they can be harassed by others. So I'm sure some of our guest speakers have experienced this. So this is, a question for Nixie and maybe whoever who has the same experience. This practice was very prevalent during the 2019 Hong Kong protest in the city. So you have experience being doxed. Could you tell us what happened and how did it affect your life?
I think being a politician in Hong Kong is basically you don't normally concern about your life. I remember a few years back when I started involved in politics in Hong Kong, I was actually joking to my friend. I read about some assassination of politicians overseas, right? So I actually joked about it to my friends. I was so safe in Hong Kong when you practice like politics, because it's not going to risk your life. You're just doing some regular community work. This is my joke for many years, up until 2019. I couldn't say that anymore because it's basically in 2019, all the politicians' personal information, including who their family members are, like my parents, my husband's information, my Hong Kong ID number, everything is online. Everything were posted on telegrams and stuff. And it didn't really like stayed away or gone after we had the NSL. Like my recent report to the police about my personal data being online is, I think, around in March or May this year. I still see my information floating around on some of the Telegram groups. And I spoke to the privacy agent about my cases. They actually did a little investigation. My information on one platform's already been exposed 17 times. And it's that, like, and it's not only that your information is online, it's that during 2019 time, we do have numbers of our politicians couldn't live in their houses anymore because it's just too dangerous. At that time, people would throw petrol bombs to your house, they'll threaten your family, even though you have a very young child. They don't care. They'll just come and attack you and exposing your information. We have cases, you have like primary school teachers or even like kindergarten school teachers were telling the kids that, well, your parents is a policeman, your parents is politician, they're the bad guys, and doing that kind of thing. So I think it's just this psychological unsafeness around you. I'm a bit like psychologically not very stable in 2019 times because I live in a house that basically people can just walk in a way. So it's not as safe as an apartment. But same, when my friends, they're living in an apartment, then they were threatened by their neighbors because their addresses were exposed and people know that they're like, maybe they're a CAB member or whatever. They say, oh, you're Beijing, we're going to kill you, we're going to bash you up, we're going to yell to your family and this and that. A lot of the things. So this level of abuse didn't really stop. It became a little bit better after we have national security law, but still, it's still pretty... it's something that you cannot imagine in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is a place that when you're walking in a very busy MTR, then somebody bump into you, they will say, sorry. This is the Hong Kong that we used to know. But in 2019, we have petrol bombs thrown in the streets every single day, and people think it's okay. So the whole situation is so different and very difficult at that time. I mean, doxing is something that is just causing a lot of the social unrest. It's not good for the whole community. And the understanding of like respecting privacy, respecting one's freedom of speech, as they always say so, just didn't exist. I mean, they are the ones that were breaking the laws and trying to harm everyone's freedom of speech.
And Nixie, after you reported to the police, have they done anything?
Yeah, I reported to the police, and then they refer me to the privacy agencies, like the committee that are actually looking at that. But still, at the moment, because the law is not so clear that they can just prosecute some of the in my context. So they are actually at the moment they're talking about how to upgrade the law and try to have more better privacy protection for people. As a politician in pre-2019 time, you can basically go to the district council office and ask for my personal information, including my addresses and stuff. And it's very easy to get. I think it was very okay in Hong Kong because nobody is trying to dox anyone or do some crazy act. But since 2019, it's not possible anymore. So I think it's very necessary to strengthen the law that protects people.
So in your case, nobody has been punished so far, right?
No, they can't prosecute anyone. But they just in case if tomorrow somebody comes and stab me, then maybe they can have enough evidence to open up a case. But at the moment, even though my information on one platform, which is Telegram, been exposed for 17 times, I still cannot prosecute or do anything.
The thing is that it's not that I was directly doxed. Because of the doxing, I had to adapt my lifestyle. Basically, I was avoiding some areas in Hong Kong. And also I would, from that day that I saw all those information leaked on internet, I would just avoid to give my address, to give like any information. Because again, especially when you have a family, it's not only you. They were targeting kids. So basically, they would expose your child picture and your information. And imagine the kids, they were being bullied at school just because they had a parent that was a policeman. So you see, the thing is that we need to put everything into the context of 2019. I personally want, since the day I started speaking out, my life was completely changed. I had only a few areas in Hong Kong where I would go to. I would never go out with my family just to avoid to get them exposed. And I would wear like glasses and a cap. So I'm asking people, is this the freedom they were looking for? Because of them, I did lose my freedom. And if it wasn't, again, I've said it before, if it wasn't for the national security law enacted in Hong Kong, well, I would have left because it was impossible to leave. You know, we had what we call the silent majority in Hong Kong, remembering that in Hong Kong, there's probably 50 to 60% of people that are not politicized. They're not politicized. They don't care about politics. What they're focusing is just putting food on the table, and they're very pragmatic. So you had those radicals that suppressed all freedom of speech, and they were the one advocating for freedom of speech and democracy. There was not democracy they were looking for. There was like fascist techniques just to suppress our voices, moderate voices. So I think the timing of this new law is the best timing. There are still loopholes that the Legislative Council needs to fill in. And this law is a priority. It's very important that we fill in all those loopholes so we can have a peaceful society. And it's nothing different from what you have in the West. Those anti-doxing laws, you can find them everywhere. I can give you some examples. And the penalties are very similar to what the Legislative Council is advising. We're talking about, in France, 300,000 euro penalty and a maximum of 5 years in prison. And I think it's, again, you know, this is just a deterrent. Once this law will be enacted, I don't think people will still dare to do doxing. Again, this is for the peace of society, and it's good for the good of Hong Kong.
I remember very cases about. I actually quoted that in the United Nations Human Rights Council meeting. Is that at that time when we're in the riot situation, people are just afraid to actually speak up a little bit louder in the restaurant or in the cafe, because there are people saying their views, just like basic discussion, like between friends, that the people next door actually overheard, next table overheard, and then they take a snap photo of them, and then they just do doxing on that person, just regular citizens chit-chatting with a friend in a cafe. They just take a photo and just post that online, and people will attack you. They texted them, and then there are cases that normal citizens, I'm not talking about like politicians or government officials, that those attackers will wait for them after work and then punch them off. It is that worse in Hong Kong. A lot of people didn't know because it's not reported in the Western media. I think it's very important to address this sort of situation that's been happening in Hong Kong.
For 1 year in Hong Kong, me and my partner, whenever we would be outside, we avoided to speak Mandarin. So can you imagine just the pressure of not speaking a language, which is a natural language that we speak at home? We stopped speaking Mandarin just because those protesters, they were targeting mainland Chinese. So you can see how evil is this movement. And it's because of this oppression that I decided to speak out, because I didn't want to live in a society that you could have your basic human right being curtailed.
Yes, I remember during the 2019 protests, a journalist from Taiwan, he or she was being beaten just because of speaking Mandarin. And also like a Japanese journalist was beaten up because of their Asian face. Yes.
A threat that consisted in throwing a dead rat outside my front door, so that when I opened the door in the morning, I found this rat, and I immediately reported it to the police. And it all stemmed from an article I wrote just before the national security law came into effect. And I knew that by writing that article, I would immediately be exposed by the pro-democracy camp that surrounded me, because I live in a very small community. It's a rural community, and everybody knows everybody. And after that article, I immediately became the target of these threats. And not only I couldn't figure out who had committed these crimes, because obviously threatening someone's life is a crime. But when I reported doxing and slander to the police, they said that there was nothing they could do, because the accusations were made by people hiding behind a fake Facebook account. And there was a coordinated defamation campaign. It was just a cheap shot trying to defame me and attack my reputation. You know, some of the accusations were ridiculous. You know, I was even accused of being married to a local triad member. Read that I'm married to a triad member, they may believe so. And I was again, accused of having organized orgies, because, you know, as a woman, obviously they target your sexual life. You know, your sexual reputation becomes, you know, something for public discussion. A man probably would have been accused of beating his wife, or you know, raping someone. So basically, character assassination takes many forms. Unfortunately, there is not much that the police could do to protect me, because Facebook wouldn't even remove this malicious content. And, you know, if this content had appeared on a newspaper, for instance, I could have sued the author, because these allegations fall within the category of defamation and slander. But the fact that they were published on the internet, though they could reach an even wider audience than if they were printed on a newspaper, meant that I couldn't do anything about it. I mean, even policemen and policewomen were targeted by doxing, and there was nothing they could do to force Facebook to remove this information or to identify the author, because very often the author doesn't even sit in Hong Kong, he's somewhere else, and is hiding behind a fake Hong Kong account. Well, I think that classifying doxing as an offense may have a deterrent effect, but only if companies such as Facebook are held accountable. But unfortunately, these US-owned social media platforms have become the new theater of war, you know, namely for information warfare. And what is taking place on these platforms is coordinated defamation campaigns, digital influence and disinformation campaigns. So it's not in the interest of these big tech companies to remove content that actually pleases their, you know, public partners.